So let me just introduce Lesiba Molepo, Dr. Lesiba Molepo, one of the first child and youth care PhD in the country, worked for 10 years in the child and youth care, working in residential community-based programs. While in practice, he obtained a BA degree from UNISA and higher education diploma from Wits University. He then joined UNISA as a lecturer for child and youth care for 7 years. He further obtained an honors degree in psychology, which enabled him to lecture psychology modules as well. In the process of his employment, he obtained an MTech degree in child and youth care work from university and a DPhil focusing on child and youth care from the University of Victoria. Lesiba is currently undertaking a short course in doctoral supervision from Stellenbosch University. Lesiba is the Deputy Director, Academic and Technology Support based in UNISA in the Polokwane office. He also serves on the 3rd Professional Board for Child and Youth Care Work and holds a position of the Chairperson of Education, Training and Development Committee of the Board. Lesiba continues to publish articles in accredited journals for child and youth care, education and psychology. He further continues to serve as an external moderator and examiner for child and youth care youth work and examines PhD theses in psychology. Once again, apologies for the technology delay. Dr. Molepo, you may continue. I'll mute and get myself.
Thank you very much, Eddie, for that kind introduction. Good morning, colleagues, and thank you very much for attending this session. Just to say, yesterday the minister challenged us to tell our stories wherever we are, and Dr. Pell sort of inspired me in telling her story, and I thought perhaps over and above what you have just heard about me, let me share with you how I got into child and youth care. After completing matric with good marks, I decided to head south from Limpopo to Gauteng to actually look for a job, thinking that when I get there, companies will just grab me. And for 8 months, I couldn't manage to secure a job. And but somebody informed my uncle that they were looking for people who could go and paint a Zozo hut. It's a converted container that was used to accommodate children who were living on the street. So obviously we said yes. We went and we would paint during the day, and at night we would begin to interact with those children. Little did we know that somebody was watching as we were interacting with those young people. And after we were done, they said to us, that was myself and my cousin, we are going to look for people who can take care of these young people. Would you be interested? And obviously the answer was yes. And we were interviewed, then we got hired, and I was happy. And therefore, I think I've got an idea of how it feels to be unemployed youth for a period of 8 months. And I think things may have changed a bit today. And the first month I earned my salary, I was happy. It was in an envelope and I was happy. The second month I looked at it, it was okay. The third month I asked myself, for how long am I going to earn this salary? And I realized at that time that only me could actually change my fate in terms of my career path. And fortunately, I got to hear about basic qualification in child and youth care training, which I enrolled for. But at the same time, I enrolled for my bachelor degree at UNISA. So during that very first year after being employed, I did something about my career. So since then, matters that involve career pathways and so on are of interest to me. And now allow me to share with you what I've prepared. Just to mention that child and youth care work is that of championing hope, as many service recipients are increasingly becoming hopeless. And we have witnessed incidents and situations where people lost their livelihoods as well as their loved ones. So it stands to reason that most of the people that child and youth care workers will be interacting with are losing hope. And child and youth care workers themselves face challenges of limited job and career opportunities, as well as limited spaces in higher education institutions offering child and youth care qualifications. It will therefore be unfair or unreasonable to expect child and youth care workers to champion hope without providing conducive environments for them to do so. And despite the above, child and youth care workers demonstrated absolute resilience to progress in this field, and some achieving academically. This slide really warms my heart, because when I look at it, we see people who have been involved in child and youth care field in one way or another. And some of the faces might look familiar there, but these colleagues, despite all the challenges, have actually managed to achieve PhDs and contribute in one way or another. And if you look at the first 6 people on the left, these are colleagues who are attached to institutions of higher learning, and therefore are in one way or another were expected to obtain PhDs in order to carry on with their work, because academia values and requires people to have PhDs. You will notice that Dr. Pell is in the middle there. It's because at one point she was also in academia, and she has just recently moved from academia and joined government. So we are excited to see that shift as well. On the far right, we see our recently graduated colleagues, Dr. Zeni and Dr. Mill, who have been in practice for a long time and yet played a very important role in child and youth care. And if you get to look at their thesis, you will notice that it is practice-based, informed by what they have been seeing, what they have been observing, and so on. Now, you can see that so far we've got about 9 people with PhDs in the country who are involved in child and youth care. And for me, the number is not enough, because we need more people, especially in academia. And we also need more people to supervise our masters and doctoral students. And therefore, the responsibility that lies on these colleagues, it's huge. And I hope that something will be done. But also to mention that for some of these colleagues, myself included, to get to where they are, there has been systematic support in the form of funding and in the form of programs that were put in place for us, especially at master's level, to get to where we are. And therefore, from the onset, I can say it is very important that our systems are such that those who are willing and able to further their studies should be supported through conducive environments. I'm going to be making an argument for master's and PhD graduates, and you will understand where I'm coming from. The National Development Plan 2030 targets to graduate 5,000 PhDs per annum. And that is in the country, irrespective of the field or the discipline. But in 2013, South Africa was graduating 2,051. I'm not sure of the latest stats now, but we are nowhere near where we should be, despite the fact that we still have about 9 years to go. Now, the child and youth care workers need to position themselves and become aware of what the National Development Plan is targeting, and therefore position themselves to participate in PhD studies so that they can be seen to be contributing to the goals of the country. These 9 professionals, like I have mentioned, are actively involved in child and youth care, but If we look at what still needs to be done, I don't think they are enough. I can estimate that there are about more than 20 professionals working or having interest in child and youth care field with related master's degrees. Now, the question I want us to ask is, how can we support these colleagues with masters to actually reach their PhD levels? Because the more PhD graduates we have, the more masters and doctoral students we can supervise. And allow me to express my gratitude to our overseas colleagues who have played a role in the training of those colleagues, some of those colleagues that you have seen earlier on. And we need to increase local expertise so that locally we can actually be self-reliant in terms of supporting and producing more masters and doctoral graduates. We know that the purpose of doctoral education is to make original contribution to knowledge. And therefore, if the field of child and youth care is to really progress to higher levels, we need more and more people who are conducting research in order to contribute to this knowledge, and especially knowledge that will be specifically relevant to our context of South Africa and Africa. The field needs to contribute high-level skills to serve the sector, including within and outside of the academy. Like I've mentioned, the emphasis for masters seem to be in academia, and I'm saying we need to find a way of ensuring that even outside academia, we can have people with doctoral and master's qualifications. Now I'm going to make an argument for studies up to PhD level. There are two types of PhDs, what they call academic PhD and professional doctorate. Traditionally, when you embark on your PhD studies, you would have one supervisor and you will have to work with that supervisor until completion. But the new research or studies in the field of doctoral supervision show that there are more benefits of maybe focusing on professional doctorate where there are more than one supervisor, and also the emphasis being on practice experiences. And therefore, if you were to go back to the slide and look at those colleagues that I have shown you who have obtained their PhDs, you can see that the role to supervise is not only going to have to be for those who are in academia, but also for those who are in practice. We need to move towards that so that we can support that target of producing more PhD students in our discipline. And we need more doctoral programs to strengthen our discipline and our profession and producing specific skills for an economy. We know that the higher the qualifications, the more people earn and the more they contribute to the economy. So child and youth care field needs to see itself as a contributor to the economy as well. Now, when you do your PhD, you will be taken through certain processes, including this concept called enculturation, whereby you will be provided with a sense of belonging to the cohort, belonging to the discipline, belonging to the research culture and research community, and having a sense of direction and working to the standards of that group. And critical thinking skills will be developed at a higher level, with the emphasis being on intellectual rigor. And you get an opportunity of thinking in new ways and the ability to analyze and recognize flaws in arguments. If you look at the current problems that we have in our country and that child and youth care workers can actually tackle, they have to be supported by some of these new ways that I'm referring to here. There also has to be this sense of emancipation to become autonomous. We need professionals who can think independently and do things independently and question the status quo and not just take things as they are, to discover personally meaningful frameworks and also to master research methods, because we need to research quite a number of areas within our field. I'm now going to take you through the pockets of excellence that we have seen during the past month of September, whereby 18 child and youth care workers graduated from IIE, or what was known as Monash. I was happy to see that cohort graduating because it shows that there are more people who are really willing to acquire education and progress. But once again, they did not just graduate. There were systematic kind of support in place whereby the Gauteng Department of Social Development paid for their studies for a duration of time to ensure that they don't carry the financial burden to achieve their degrees. The question that I would like to ask is where to for these graduates. And I know that DUT and Monash continue to produce child and youth care graduates. Now, DUT plans to introduce postgraduate diploma as well as masters in child and youth care. My question is, how can we systematically plan, support, and retain these graduates? One of the things that we need to do is to really try and instill this culture of lifelong and life-wide learning. Our child and youth care workers need to be encouraged to continue learning, but not only learning in one area, but in different areas as well, so that they can actually share skills and learn skills from other areas. We also need to be careful and make sure that our curriculum teach critical skills that can make graduates employable, but not only that, we need social entrepreneurs within the sector and beyond, because unemployment is rife in the country. So if we are going to rely on the existing organizations to absorb our child and youth care workers, it might be difficult. Therefore, entrepreneurship might also assist in that regard. This is the slide that was shared by the chairperson of our board, Dr. Zeni, yesterday about where we are in terms of registration. You will just notice that child and youth care workers are registered at auxiliary level are at 69%, and those who are still studying and who are likely to register at auxiliary level as well are 27%. Only 1% registered at professional level, and 2% are still students who are likely to register at professional level upon completion. You will agree with me, colleagues, that this picture is not a good one. We really need to ensure that we change this picture as we see it, so that our field in the long run is really run by people who are registered at a professional level. We cannot ignore some of the dynamics that are taking place in our country, and therefore we need to pay attention to the statistics and see what they tell us. This is the unemployment rate by level of education in our country. Stats SA showed that graduate unemployment is 23.3 points lower than the national official unemployment rates, meaning that people who are graduates stand a better chance of being employed, unlike those who are not graduates. Of the 7.2 million unemployed persons in the first quarter of 2021, more than half, in other words, 52.4%, had education below matric, followed by those with matric at 37.7%. And Cabinet has expressed concern that the unemployment rate of university graduates during the first quarter of 2021 stood at 9.3%. Although that figure is a bit high, I just want us to look at that picture on the right, whereby we see that 52.4% of people who were unemployed are those without matric, and 37.7% of those who were unemployed had matric, but still were unemployed. And but look at graduates. We only had about 2.1% of graduates being unemployed according to that diagram. What does this tell us? This tells us that our efforts should be towards getting our child and youth care workers become graduates so that they can stand a better chance of being employed. I have been thinking about this and came up with this structure here to say, think about it. Well, at a basic qualification level, we've got many people who have got basic qualifications. And yet, if you look on the right-hand side, there are many people with basic qualifications, but there are fewer entry-level opportunities. Now, the higher you go, the better the opportunities. You will notice that those with PhDs stand a better chance of maybe occupying all sorts of places in terms of employment and contribute at that level. But not only that, I think they are also standing a better chance of earning very decent salaries in that regard. So we really need to encourage our child and youth care workers to study and see how far they can go. Now, this diagram sort of summarizes what I have been talking about. So on a personal level, for people to personally feel good and be okay, we need to create sustainable and gainful jobs and opportunities. And I'm saying gainful because some jobs you can work, but really not see what you are doing. And it may be from hand to mouth. And we need to be sure that the kind of jobs that we create are gainful for our child and youth care workers. We need to place those with qualifications and relevant skills in jobs, particularly in child and youth care and beyond. I keep on referring to this child and youth care and beyond because I believe we need to get to a point where we absorb all our child and youth care workers that we need. And also get to a point where when some of our child and youth care workers venture into other areas to make contributions there, we don't feel the pinch, we don't feel the loss. We need to ensure consistent and decent salaries. Very, very important. We have heard about how even stipends are not being paid consistently, and that undoubtedly is affecting our child and youth care workers and denting their morale. Educationally, I think we need to increase higher education institutions offering child and youth care qualifications. Some of the presentations shared, I think we have demonstrated the engagements of the board with higher education institutions to actually introduce this child and youth care qualifications. We need to avail bursaries and special funds. I have mentioned that for some of us to get to where we were, it wasn't because we had money, it was because special funds were made available so that we could pursue our studies. We need to continue doing that. Now, and I was just going back to the example of Gauteng government. I was just thinking that if each province was to commit to send 10 child and youth care workers every year at every level, we would have 90 child and youth care workers pursuing their studies. And you can imagine what would happen upon completion. But we need a commitment from those provinces about the role that child and youth care workers can play in order to address the needs of the societies and communities out there. We need to support those with certificates, diplomas to study towards postgraduate levels up to PhD levels. And of course, collaboration between stakeholders is critical. Yesterday, we have had HWCTA committing to making bursaries available for child and youth care workers. And we need more of more stakeholders to come on board in order to actually do that. But also we need to look into the facilitation of articulation and mobility of our child and youth care workers. Professionally, I've already mentioned that let us support those registered at auxiliary to further their studies and register at professional levels. Now, Pearl yesterday challenged us as well to say the systems need to change and the systems might take time to change. Now I want to challenge child and youth care workers to say, what can I do as an individual to really change my situation? And by so doing, you will be changing the situation of our field. These three questions sort of came to my mind, and I think we need to keep on asking them in order for us to move forward. Wherever you are, you need to say, what else? What else can I do? How else can I do things? And where else can I go and do those things? I just want to thank you at this point. Thank you very much, Program Director.
Thank you very much, Dr. Molepo, for quite an informative presentation in the options available and the requirements for the field. See, we've got some comments. Rosemary is saying people are struggling financially, which makes it difficult for them to study further. And I think you addressed that by mentioning that Elaine Brass has mentioned that there will be bursaries available and funding, and you've also suggested that other provinces proceed in a similar way as the Gauteng province has. Mpumi, esteemed another doctor in the field and a colleague, Dr. Molepo, well said. We also need child and youth care workers to advocate in their different provinces. If it is possible in Gauteng, it can cut across. We need to work together to change our positions in the field. Dr. Dewan is some esteemed colleague commenting. Thank you very much, Dr. Molepo, for this insightful presentation. It brings certain issues to the fore, and it's people a very informative session. Thank you from Dr. Charlene Singh. Very thought-provoking and encouraging. Dr. Molepo, yes, I'm intrigued by especially your summary of the career pathing, because we have also we've got quite a few masters students around. Yes, there's a bit of a deficit in the doctoral level, but what is Gauteng, for instance? The question is, we've had, it looks like a cohort of about between 20 and 30 students from a NASH achieving their degree studies. So what would their career path be within the Department of Social Development? Is there something in place with regard to what will happen to them? We've also had DUT with graduations every year, and I think the professional board, you're in a position to comment about that as well. The professional board was at one stage looking at tracking down what has happened to all the child and youth care workers who graduated with degrees who have possibly left the field. Where are they? So what are we doing about what is the actual career path within DUT for the good initiative they've shown? Will these people stay as coal-faced child and youth care workers?
Thank you very much for those comments. Let's start with the comment that people are struggling financially to actually study further. Indeed, that is true. But people have always been struggling, especially given our historical background. And we have seen grandparents in the past sacrificing their last resources, be it cows and so on, in order to give education to their children and grandchildren. And that kind of struggle is not going to end now, and it may not end in the near future. I just want to say, we need to get to a point where we can also make a short-term personal sacrifice while aiming for long-term gains. And I'm not underestimating the realities that many face there. Hence, I have advocated for systematic financial support and so on. But just to mention that in terms of our current educational funding model in the country, those people who are earning less than 350,000 income per annum qualify for NSFAS. And therefore, that is the first avenue that we can explore. And beyond that, I think we're saying, let there be other financial arrangements and so on. In terms of what will happen to those graduates, we as the board are really trying to have meetings with the relevant stakeholders and advocating for the structural changes, especially within government, to ensure that child and youth care workers do have career path so that they don't get stuck at a certain level. And when those opportunities are going to open, we just need to be sure that child and youth care workers are ready and well positioned. And I have been saying this even many years ago, over a decade ago, when I was still a lecturer, because I used to hear some child and youth care workers in my class saying, what is the point of studying, because we are earning the same amount of salaries with our colleagues who are not studying. And they tell us in our face that you can do your diploma, you can do your degree, we're still gonna earn the money, the same money. And I used to say to them, things change, governments change. And when that change comes, some are not going to be ready. And I'm saying, let child and youth care workers position themselves now, even if our opportunities are not yet ready. Because when those opportunities become available, we need to be sure that we grab them. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Molepo. The comments are coming through hard and fast from all the colleagues here. Mr. Alfred Harris saying the availability of the study course is important. He's also saying that secondly, government must be engaged in the discussion to fund bursaries and posts to be made available, and career pathing and funding for the NGO sector. Mpumi is saying that in Gauteng, we are now changing our structures to have senior managers with higher positions. So that speaks to what possibly positions those graduates could occupy. And again, as you said, Dr. Molepo, you are in discussions, but what should, and this is an opinion, that these graduates should be immediately identified as being fast-tracked for senior positions, and the courses and support needs to be put in place for whatever they may require, enrichment in management and so forth, whatever goes around that. And making an example, Gauteng is being very proactive, and well done to Gauteng DSD. However, it feels like that's a silo, is what's happening to all the other major 8 provinces that was not following suit. Dr. Molepo, just 1 or 2 more comments. And again, thank you very much, Dr. Molepo, for a very important information. We're great to push the agenda for getting child and youth care workers in systems while pushing education levels as well. Because currently child and youth care workers are like homeless professionals, regardless of levels of qualifications. And again, closing one from Mpumi, we are also aligning our job descriptions to be at 2 levels, auxiliary and professional. There will be a professional level. Post adverts are also aligned with 2 levels, and requirements are clearly stipulated. And again, as I said, a big up to Gauteng and DSD for where they are at. Dr. Molepo, thank you very much. This was a very informative session. And I think if we didn't have a cutoff, we could probably carry on another half an hour, if not more, because again, I think that child and youth care workers are all concerned about career pathing and growth and development for themselves. It's something we preach to ourselves and something all of us should be engaged in. So thank you very much, and a good day to everyone, and thank you everyone for attending, and thank you for your comments. And have a good closing ceremony and plenary as we conclude the conference. Thank you very much, Dr. Molepo.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you very much, Eddie. Have a good day.